Right, thought I'd record a few thoughts on paddling in windy weather again. Now that it's a stormy day actually today, or there's a storm coming. Wind comes and goes, but that's the point as well when you're out paddling. Always, obviously, check the weather forecast. Even if it seems like a really calm day, even if it's sunny and you don't even see clouds, it could change significantly later in the day. So if you're going paddling, make it a habit to always check that weather forecast and plan your routes so that you have wind shelter from land, from islands or the coast or whatever it is, if you need it. And make sure that you have spots where you can actually get to shore along your routes. There could be long stretches where it's not really possible. So if the weather changes quickly, if the wind picks up, and you're on a stand-up paddleboard or you're in a kayak that's vulnerable to wind, all kayaks are vulnerable to wind, but some are more so, especially if you're in an inflatable. Adapt your paddling trip accordingly. It's really easy to underestimate how tricky things can get and how quickly that can happen. You could have, like I've had, a day where it's a bit cloudy but mostly sunny and warm and really nice, not that much wind, and all of a sudden within a stretch of say 10 minutes you actually have crazy wind, rain falling, lightning on the horizon, and thunder all of a sudden echoing across the lake. Then you want to get to land as soon as possible. So when there's any kind of risk of that or of bad weather changes, really, you want to make sure to have responsible paddle routes where you're paddling. That makes a lot of difference. And if you had to get to land, if you had to somehow take shelter, do you have proper gear with you? Do you have extra clothing? Do you have anything to protect against cold and wind and weather? Do you have like an emergency shelter or something to protect? Maybe you even have to stay overnight if you're in the archipelago or somewhere where you actually have to stay overnight because it's simply too rough to go paddling further. So how would you handle that situation? Do you have lighting along, headlights and other directional lighting to be visible to other vessels on the water in case you suddenly end up paddling in the dark? Well, I mean, it makes sense to be prepared. And those of us who paddle a lot are used to that. The weather can shift quite significantly. And what at one point was reasonably calm water could suddenly shift to be significant waves, and in a worst case, wind blowing you away from land. That wind blowing you away from land, especially if it's on the coast, that is what could be dangerous. Stand-up paddleboarders especially can be really vulnerable to this, and there are cases, especially in the UK and the US, where this has really become a problem. Rescuers having to go out because you have stand-up paddleboarders or kayakers who simply can't get back to land because the wind is too strong. So think a little bit about that before heading out into what could be tricky conditions. Also take into account tides and currents and stuff like that. So those are a few thoughts. Stay safe wherever you are. If you are in stormy conditions today, it's going to be bad in some parts of the country, then I hope you're all right. And, well, happy paddles. Stay safe.